Well, Aries, welcome to August 2015. Dadhichi Toth here from astrology.com.au. To those of you that are new, welcome. It's good to have your company, and I'm just going to give you a quick synopsis of what's going on in the light of the fact that Venus is retrograde now, and along with that, the full moon on the 1st of the month is a pretty powerful full moon in your 11th house. Now, if you watch the introduction, I was talking about the untoward effects of Venus as a planet that is not considered altogether beneficial in the Eastern tradition of astrology. We have to balance this out, weigh it up. It does rule your finance sector and your relationships. And because it's a finance planet for you, ruling the sign of Taurus, it's quite likely that, for some of you who are in business, working in, a professional scenario, that this retrogression will have a lot to say about your business life and the people that you're in partnership with at this time. It's retrograde in your 5th house, and the Sun, Mercury, Jupiter are also in that locality. This is a house of romance and speculation as well. We see that the full moon in the 11th house, which is the social area of your horoscope, accentuates this romantic aspect. So let's just look at that, because I think that may be an area that is going to particularly stand out for you this month. And also by virtue of the fact that we see Mars, your ruling planet, moving into this sector on the 9th. I'm just taking a look here at my notes. So if I'm looking away, it's not that I'm being rude. So we see there that jam-packed 5th house of romance and love affairs. And also the fact that we have the full moon, and then later on the 14th, that new moon in this 5th house tells us that a whole lot of new things are happening for you in this area of your life. This is a very significant period in your life, I believe. I've focused a lot in the last few months on that Pluto in your 10th house of career, which is affecting your professional activities and really burning away a lot of the dross, really refining what it is that you want in that area of your life. Here we see the activation by Mars and the Sun, all good planets. Jupiter's a good planet. Mercury is not considered such a good planet, and neither is Venus for you. But on balance, we see a much strongly and positively affected romance sector for you during this month, especially after the 14th. You have some nice triangular aspects there between Saturn and the South Node, which is your past karma. That's also still in your sun sign. And that tells us too that, from the position of Mars too, which is just past that grand trine, what we call a grand trine, that's excellent for really learning from your lessons, understanding what it is you need to do now to affect good experiences with the people that you draw into your life. Ketu, or that South Node, the past karma point, being in your sun sign. I might have alluded to that in a reading or two ago for you, that if you are aware enough will very much help you. It's a friendly planet to your star sign. It just means learning the lesson of what it is within your patterns of relating to others that need to be fixed, where you've been disappointed in the past, and how you can move forward now in that area, especially with the North Node or the current karma. It's showing us that is the area of resistance. The North Node and Saturn, Saturn's been in your 8th house of sexual and intimate affairs. That's been going on for a couple of years now. So we see that the stresses and the challenges that you've had are certainly not minor. They are indeed strong. So Venus ruling that specific area of your life, going into this retrograde motion is going to trigger a lot of these other areas. Going backwards does mean, in a lot of ways, again, reminiscing or reflecting and doing self-analysis over this. It could also mean the reverse, because being the planet that rules your partner or the general public or those important people who are in relationship with you, they themselves may be having I don't know if I'd say change of heart, but things may not go as expected, and adjustments need to be made under those sort of planetary transits. The 15th is a very significant date, mainly because Jupiter, which I've just said is also in this area, shifts, and that's a fairly big one. Jupiter is one of the slower moving planets. It's not as slow as Saturn or Uranus or Neptune or Pluto, but it still is very defining on a year-by-year basis. And for the first time in 12 years, it moves to your 6th house, which is health. It is the area of your work environment, co-workers, enemies, and debts. So it's not considered a great position to have this lucky planet. For you, it is probably one of the luckiest planets in that 6th house. Can indicate a diminishing of the luck, a need for you to rely more on your own inner resources to step up and be accountable, and to not, again, getting back to that past karma point, not sort of resting on your laurels, or thinking or hoping that the future is going to be exactly the same, and that the luck you've had perhaps in the past, especially over this last year, it's not a particularly bad time having Jupiter in the 5th house. But that can change, and I always say to clients and listeners or watchers, go back 12 years ago, have a look at what was happening at that time to get a bit of a feel for what is likely to happen during this particular transit of Jupiter in your 6th house. There's no doubt, having this very recent combination and now the retrogression, Jupiter will pass over Venus before Venus goes direct again. That's ordinarily considered a very lucky combination. Although Venus is not your luckiest planet, that combination is considered somewhat fortuitous. So for those of you who are single, this could be a time when you meet someone or you revive the relationship that you've had with an existing person. And then on the 24th, we see that movement of the Sun out of this 5th house. So, Jupiter first, and then a little bit later, the Sun moving away. So a bit of that energy being taken out, and that'll move on up until the early part of September for you. So the focus will shift, I think, after the 12th, and then again after the 24th. And then again around the 28th, because Mercury will also, I'm just trying to grasp that, Mercury has moved out of there actually around the 8th into this 6th house as well. So 8th, 12th and 24th are fairly significant dates where the energy shifts and focuses on this area of work, health, debts, disease. And another point, enemies. You may find that part of the change in your attitude that I mentioned happens around the 14th has to do with the way you deal with your co-workers, the way you deal with enemies, and most importantly, which seems to be the focus for the first half of the month, how you're dealing with your relationships, learning from your particular lessons in life. Now, the other point I left out here was the area of speculation, because that 5th house can indeed mean that you want to take a gamble. It could be a gamble on that relationship. Could be just stepping out. You're not the sort of person that doesn't take a gamble, but this could be a pretty big one. And don't forget that the planet Uranus is in your sun sign still, fully influencing that 7th house of relationships. So this could be something pretty zany or wacky, or something that you wouldn't normally do, someone you wouldn't normally date, someone that would initially seem a little bit weird maybe. But with the retrogression of Venus, perhaps you let the situation go and you think, maybe I should have looked into that a little bit more. Maybe I was a little too premature, a little too Aries impulsive. So that's what the retrogression may do as well, if it's in terms of taking a punt. Of course, that can relate to finances and money as well. So all in all, I think the 11th house, 5th house, full moon and new moon is important. The cluster of planets in that 5th house is important. And then those shifts, the 8th, 12th and 24th, moving to this area of your work. That could show also, by the way, change in your diet, change in the work environment, new employees coming and going, and adjustments in that area of your life. For more, we can give you details on that in the textual form at the website, astrology.com.au. Please join us there. And until next month, have a great one. Look forward to your company again. Bye-bye.